Now we move south and west to the coast. We have our first sight of the Adriatic Sea in the resort town of Opatija. Opatija is a wonderful place to walk around, relax, try the local libations, and admire the harbor statue called the Maiden and the Seagull. The statue is beautifully illuminated at night. Under a full moon, both it and Opatija shine brightly. At various times, Opatija was ruled by Romans, Austro-Hungarian Habsburgs, and Venetian Medicis. Now tourists rule. Who can resist the delicious locally made chocolates, especially since they're sold right across the street from our hotel? On our side trip to Pula on the Istrian coast, the focus is on the huge Roman amphitheater. It's in great shape, comparable to the bigger Colosseum of Rome. On an upper level, one of us can't make up his mind about the fate of the gladiatorial tourists below. Beneath the arena is a display of period devices and urns. Like so many other towns in Croatia, Pula has been invaded and occupied often. The city walls at times had to be so hastily repaired after battles that the builders used whatever random materials were in easy reach, such as parts of broken Roman columns from the area and anything else sturdy and handy. Walking to the Temple of Jupiter, we pass another Roman gate and a well-preserved ancient mosaic floor. On the way back, Maddie says hello to James Joyce, who once spent an uncomfortably cool winter here. We have a comfortably cool gelato, then find an open-air market where many kinds of honey are sold. The vendor extols the benefits of linden tree honey.
Linden honey is good for heart, or before sleeping, if you take before sleeping, you will.
We try a sample and buy. Passing remnants of the 1990s war, we journey inland to the natural gem that is Plitvice Lakes National Park. It was Croatia's first, established while it was part of Yugoslavia in 1949. We begin with an orientation by our guide, Rose. There are 16 lakes on roughly 2 levels. Our group initially passes some of the lower lakes, taking in the gorgeous natural carbonate tints of green and blue and the many falls that punctuate the karst and travertine limestone landscape. The water is crystal clear. After an energy-saving bus ride to the upper lakes, the gang wends its way downhill on foot. We hike for at least 2 hours on the trail, taking in unendingly scenic views. Some of the boardwalk is uneven and difficult to maneuver. Despite this, the walk is immensely rewarding. An electric boat quietly ferries us back. We board the bus for our next stop. Tirsat is the site of a church with many supplicants who, in gratitude for miraculous healing, have donated works of art they made. It's also the home of a castle and lookout tower with views of the Uxmal mountain tunnel and the harbor. We happily sample some honey schnapps that 2 generous members of our group provide. Many different flavors are distilled in Croatia, and there will be more schnapps breaks to come. That's a part of the Mediterranean diet we weren't aware of before. On the way to Zadar along the Dalmatian coast is quiet, uncrowded Trogir. It has a medieval town's layout and Camerlengo Castle is within easy walking distance. Zadar is the oldest continually inhabited city in Croatia. Like Pula, there are several Roman ruins, including a forum, and ancient churches and unusual large-scale artwork such as the sea organ and Greeting to the Sun. We're staying at a hotel on the sea which provides a prime view to witness a captivating sunrise. Our guide, Professor Vinko, effectively uses a book of visual aids and a map to make his points. First stop is at the Greeting to the Sun. It's a circular group of glass plates and solar panels surrounded by other plates, mimicking the solar system. It powers some of the waterfront's lighting. Adjacent to it is the sea organ, only visible as holes in the concrete. Beneath, it employs pipes connected to the sea, forcing air through and making eerie, sometimes droning, but calming tones. Here's a sample. It's an easy downhill walk to the remains of a Roman forum. Nearby is a column from a Roman temple that was repurposed in the Middle Ages as a pillory for shackling people. It was referred to as the Pillar of Shame. Sentences ranged from a few hours to 3 days. The forum isn't much compared to what's in Rome. It provides amusement for kids. This super kid seems to be trying to roll a fallen column. Rotund St. Donatus Church, over 1,000 years old, overlooks the ruins. That bell tower at St. Anastasia's Cathedral calls Bill, challenging him to a climb. He buys a ticket for a few kuna, then rushes up the many steps in time to see the bells ringing, somehow managing to avoid tripping on the high stairs. It gets rather loud in there. Enough of that. Time to rejoin the others. While tempted by the ice cream treats, the better choice is relaxing with refreshing lemon-flavored beer. Another item to shop for in Croatia is handmade lace. Regretfully, we've only scratched the surface of Zadar, but we must return to the hotel to get a good night's rest before moving down coast to Split. As a nice farewell, we catch a great sunset. En route to Split, we take a break for a little fortification with cherry schnapps. Coastal Split's main tourist attraction is the Roman Emperor Diocletian's palace, built during the year 305. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, this city, too, suffered the same series of conquerors following the Romans, such as the Hungarians, Venetians, French, and Habsburgs. Along the way to the Riva Harbor Promenade, we stop for an eye-catching two-piece kinetic sculpture on Marmont Street. The funnel has a sad history of suffering vehicle collision and sometimes being abused as a receptacle for trash. Basketball is a very popular sport in Croatia. This morning, a busy basketball clinic has been organized on the Riverwalk. One of the entrances to Diocletian's palace takes us past a 28-foot-tall statue created by Ivan Mestrovic. It's of a medieval Croatian bishop named Gregory of Nin. He's a symbol of national pride. Rubbing the big toe is supposed to grant good luck. Since this statue was broken by the invading Italians in World War II, then reassembled afterward, maybe he's the recipient of the luck. Entry here is through the Golden Gate, which was designed to trap invaders, and now does the same thing with tourists. We traverse narrow cobblestoned streets, passing by windows draped with the patina of age. The central square is packed with antiquity. That Sphinx was from Egypt. The round vestibule, with its excellent acoustics and wide oculus, is where Klapa singers perform. Let's listen. Wow, can they carry a tune? Energized by the singers, we take on the St. Domnius bell tower. In many places, the steps are so tall and narrow that only two can pass by turning sideways. But the effort pays off as we catch great vistas of the city and harbor. Then, the bells clang. As our hearing recovers, we descend from the tower and tour the St. Domnius Church itself and the Temple of Jupiter. Diocletian considered himself to be a son of Jupiter. Since the early Christians disagreed with him, he was quick to kill them for their beliefs. However, the Christians became ascendant and converted Diocletian's mausoleum into the gilded splendor of St. Domnius. Similarly, his Temple of Jupiter was rededicated to John the Baptist. Plenty of restaurants and shops grace the palace area, including in the basement of the palace. We stop for a great mushroom and ham pizza at Restaurant Duya near the eastern wall. The kitchen lets us see it being rolled while a guitarist outside sings a doleful song. Further away, a guitarist from Japan plugs in and gets these gleeful children dancing. We have a nice dinner in a courtyard at the Spalaton restaurant. Notice those red blankets on the chairs? Later that evening, we discover their purpose. Split is subject to the unpredictable and strong Bura winds, which rapidly create a wind chill. On this night, they outdid themselves. Thank goodness for the blankets. We are treated to a nice sunset as the city's lights come alive. Returning to the President Hotel, we pass by a square where feral cats wait for handouts. We head for our rooms and get ready for the next adventure, Dubrovnik. Bags out at 7 a.m. On the way south, it's time for another schnapps break. We pass a huge olive tree said to be over 1,500 years old, which means it was planted during the Roman Empire's waning days. Briefly, we pass through a sliver of Bosnia. Crossing a modern suspension bridge, we enter the Pearl of the Adriatic, red-roofed Dubrovnik and its massive walls built between the 12th and 17th centuries. They are up to 20 feet thick. There's a long cable car ride available if you want a bird's-eye view of the city. We choose to walk into the old city via the drawbridge at the western Pula gate, through the narrow streets overflowing with shops. In the old city, there's the 1438 Onofrio fountain from which flows clean, cool mountain water. Ah, how refreshing. It's also a popular hangout for musicians attracting tourist dollars. In the Old City, the Sponzas and Rector's Palaces and the Orlando Bell Tower are especially impressive. They remind us of the architecture of the Doge's Palace in Venice. The Rector's Palace has plenty of period artwork and furniture, including this sedan chair from the 18th century. Talk about riding in style. On the way out, one of us can't resist rubbing the well-worn nose of the statue of playwright Marin Derzic for more luck. It's fun to stroll around the old city, especially at night. But walking the wall is the best treat. Ascending it requires a lot of exertion, since we have to steeply climb to a maximum height of 82 feet, and it's a long walk around the city. But the views are superb. Look at these sheer drops to the churning sea. The Buja Beach Bar, perched on the cliffside, is great for drinks on the rocks. However, along the way, one of us is nearly taken prisoner in an overlook turret that locks from the outside. Dubrovnik was extensively bombed during the Serbo-Croatian War of the early 1990s. You can see the difference between the time-worn, centuries-old roof tiles and the vibrantly hued replacements. Now it's all aboard for an Adriatic sunset cruise. Parts of our vessel date back to the late 1880s, but it's quite seaworthy. As we settle in and watch the Dubrovnik harbor recede, first out of the galley are the schnapps, beer and wine. Dinner follows. Then we take in the sunset. We were lucky with the weather that evening, since later that night a severe thunderstorm that damaged part of the hotel passed through. On our last day, we drive into the Konavle Valley. It's a winding and steep ride reminiscent of Italy's Amalfi Coast cliffhanger drive. We are going to tour a farm that's been owned by the Brodovich family for hundreds of years. The white grape trellis we walk under hints that they make their own wine and brandy. Indeed, our hosts invite us to try their home-distilled varieties, even a brandy made with rosewater. It's a challenge, but we've trained for this throughout the entire trip and are prepared. Before we begin our lunch, our host tells us about the family's history and traditions.
In the past, it was common that first son stays at the land. All other girls would get married and they would leave, and other sons would be sent to school.
For starters, we are served prosciutto, freshly made cheese, homegrown olives, and fruit. The main course is meat, onions, and potatoes, baked under an iron bell for an hour. At last, we get to try the dish we wanted to order but didn't get back in Zagreb. The group agrees that it's delicious. What an adventure! While we were duly impressed by the churches and statues of Croatia and Slovenia, much of what we experienced was delightfully unexpected and pure fun. Okay, the Mirogoj Cemetery was somber, but the gravesite sculpting there is highly unusual. We weren't expecting to see Dyson church stained glass windows, nor hear friendly cannon fire in the midst of a city. Statues of culturally important Croatian men and women and well-rubbed toes and noses kept catching our attention. Zagreb's emblems are proudly displayed atop churches and manhole covers. Not to be outdone, Ljubljana's huge dragons adorn bridges and other civic structures. There's no shortage of them. Dragons appear throughout the two countries. The Game of Thrones has nothing on them. Man-made and natural wonders were everywhere. They ranged from well-preserved Roman ruins in Split and Pula, the sturdy bulwarks of Dubrovnik, the serene beauty of Postojna Caves, Lake Bled, and Plitvice Lakes National Park, just to name a few of the many magnificent sights. We heard so much good music. There was the mellow sound of the sea organ of Zadar, and voices of the Klapa singers, which were as strong as the Bora winds, but much warmer. The merry folk dancers in Slovenia had us laughing hard with their hat game. Hot jazz blew in Dubrovnik at night. Climbing the bell towers for the views and hearing the mighty bells ring was a first for Jim, Bill, and Maddie. And we can't forget all the schnapps and brandy, and the camaraderie of our fellow passengers and expertise of our guides. Živieli, Slovakia and Croatia to life.